So now we're 15 years into our friendship. It's 1980. And I kind of, my career got revived again with an extended tour of Japan in 1979. A big yes from the Brothers Four. And in 1980, you and I started doing, I was back in Seattle and we started doing some recording at big and famous studios.
Mm-hmm.
And Greg Haverfield, Paul Wager and we, and Dreger was up there to help us, and then we did some concerts in the Seattle Concert Theater. And each one was sold out, and it did really well, and we were kind of growing into it. And then in 1981, I asked Bob Flick, bass player in the Brothers Four and dear friend of ours, to become a producer of an album. And we decided that in order to sort of do it in an economical way, we would do it live in the studio in front of an audience of family and friends. And Bob arranged it, and we got it all going. And it was in September. And my dad unexpectedly called. He was living overseas at that time in the Foreign Service. And kind of as a surprise to me, he called. And that night, we were in the studio doing a rehearsal, and my brother dropped him off with me. And that night we came back to my place, and I realized in the course of that night what a hard place my dad was in for lots of personal reasons. And here I was in this wanting to reach out to my dad as best I could, wondering whether this album could ever be made. And we went up and we went into the studio, did the recording, and we ended up at Treats Restaurant, John and Pat's place, sitting in the back. We each had two Heinekens, if I remember, sitting in the back. The tears of this unbelievable emotion of worrying about my dad on one hand, and all this laughter that we had really created something that was pretty amazing. Mm-hmm. And it's that first time I remember in my life holding two contradictory or two conflicting emotions together in sort of wide open, and it became Between Friends.
Well, the part about that is that you didn't have to go through that part alone, and it just, what that did is just sort of cemented our relationship even more at that time.
Yep. Yeah, became something more, something different.
Mm-hmm.
And so for the next actually 3 years, with 82 and 83 and 84, we did some pretty serious concerts trying to promote, get people to listen to Between Friends, which is where we met Ted. Mm-hmm. and some other key guys, key band members. And I met Reed Ruddy. We met Reed Ruddy then, and he's become a lifetime friend. And so we did some concerts. First one was the big one was at the Moore, and then in Spokane, that was in '82. And then in '83 we added some songs, Dear Partner, Magic Carp, I Don't Know Where the Good Times Go, which were really, and Madman on the High Wire. Mm-hmm. And those songs became, well, they still are some of our signature songs that we still sing to this day. That was sort of the heart of Pearson and McCoy, I think, from a musical standpoint.
Well, I think it's great for those songs because I was running around with my own historian. I look back at these songs, and it sort of encapsulates my life from point A to point wherever we are now, and I'm glad you were there. I'm glad you were there to witness it, number one, and to be the scribe.
There you go.
At the same time.
And then in late spring, when in fact, just on the other personal side of things, this was also during that same time period, when I was your main assistant for building your log house on Beaver Lake.
We did build a house together, didn't
Yeah, and so that we had
almost died.
Almost died. I just lift up that one thing.
C6
yeah,
or whatever it was.
But yeah. So that was a pretty amazing part. And then in '83, in spring of '83, I was sitting with Pat Sands. We had just played some squash, or I guess it was racquetball we were playing back then, and he had just finished up his master's program and was going to Israel, and it's May of 1983. And he looked up at me with this wistful look that he hardly ever got, and he said, "You know, sometimes I get weary."
That was prophetic.
And so we did that concert we did. We actually recorded it remotely, and Reed was our engineer on that. He had a remote truck, and he got this, you asking where's Sands and this and that, and we were going to add that maybe as for our next album, and then 8 days later, on June 19th, Father's Day of 1983, Pat Sands aneurysm, and he died by 2 that afternoon. And we spent the next year from June until September of 1984 writing songs that complemented sort of that what it means to sort of look at mortality in life. And I remember that song, "Sometimes I get weary down in my soul. Sometimes I get weary down in my bones. Sometimes I get weary so I get weary sometimes." And it became a song, and then it became 3 songs, and then we wrote some songs about the sea, and they became 3 songs, and it really was 1984, September 22nd. It really was, I guess, musically from that time, was really a pinnacle, and with Ted, the musical director, and a lot of time, and pretty amazing songs in a moment.
Well, and I think that with the two of us, that you're such an incredible writer, but at the same time, we got to work as a team creating these songs, and bringing these songs
absolutely.
to life. And I think that was a big part of the two of us together.
I
When we
agree.
get down, and that we'd have this raw piece of words and a tune, or maybe a semblance of a tune, and what would happen maybe an hour later, or maybe 3 hours later, or maybe a week later, when this product would come out, that would just I think it was amazing to me.
Yeah, and just the transformation of what I first presented, and what at the end of that time period you're talking about, what happened to it. Yeah. Just amazing. And I think it was we couldn't get that career exactly off the ground in a way, and so when I became again back permanently with the Brothers 4 in '85, there was some time where we would gather from time to time, but that was first 5 years of 1980 were a pretty amazing time that we still draw back on that music even these days.
We were active then.
Active.
Very active at that time.
Yep.